Black twin boys bullied at elite school, unaware they are black belt fighters. When Malik and Jordan Turner transferred to Harrison West Academy, an elite, almost entirely white private school, nestled in Connecticut's quiet wealth, they knew it wouldn't be easy. But nothing could have prepared them for what was waiting behind those polished gates. From day one, Grayson Tate and his crew made it their mission to break the twins down. Every insult, every shove in the hallway, every whispered slur between class periods was designed to make them feel small, out of place, and alone. But Malik and Jordan weren't ordinary targets. What the bullies didn't know was that both boys were black belts, trained since childhood by a father who taught them to stand tall in the face of hate and never let anger dictate their worth. The bullies saw quiet boys from a working-class neighborhood and thought they were weak. They couldn't have been more wrong. Before we go any further, drop a comment letting us know where in the world you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you won't want to miss. The late September sky over Fairfield County, Connecticut, still clung to the warmth of summer, but the breeze whispered of autumn coming fast. Leaves drifted lazily across the manicured lawn of Harrison West Academy, a historic prep school nestled between the old towns of Wilton and New Canaan. The buildings stood like monuments, red brick, iron balconies, and ivy twisting up their walls like veins of legacy. Malik and Jordan Turner stepped through the front gate, quiet but deliberate. Identical in stride, posture, and calm determination, the twin brothers wore the same navy blue blazers and khakis as everyone else, but nothing about them blended in. Their skin was a warm bronze, their hair neatly cropped, and their eyes clear and watchful. They came from New Haven, from a neighborhood where respect was earned, not inherited. And at Harrison West, they were more than newcomers. They were reminders that excellence didn't always come with a trust fund. Halting conversations and glances shadowed them from the moment their sneakers met the old stone walkway. "Feel that," Jordan said under his breath. Malik gave the faintest nod. "Pressure like we don't belong." Their father, Darius Turner, had warned them. A former Army drill instructor turned youth counselor. He didn't dress up reality. He told the truth straight and hard. He had trained them mentally, emotionally, and physically for moments like this. Before they could even ride bikes, he had them memorizing the words, discipline, dignity, and distance. And later, when they were old enough, he taught them martial arts, not for violence, but for balance, to hold their ground with calm when everything else tried to shake it. At the top of the school steps, a voice rang out. "Well, would you look at that? Harrison West now comes in double." The twins turned slightly. A trio of boys stood by the tall limestone pillars, all smirking. Grayson Tate, the ringleader, was unmistakable. Golden hair slicked back, blazer unbuttoned like he didn't have to follow rules. And that slow grin of someone who believed the world owed him comfort. Beside him, Chase Bennett and Reed Walker, less confident but just as cruel, chuckled like they were auditioning for approval. 2 for 1. "That's how they're doing scholarships now," Grayson added. Jordan looked straight ahead. Malik didn't stop walking. Grayson whistled. "Tight blazers, boys. Did Goodwill run out of sizes?" Jordan's fist twitched by his side. Malik steadied his breath, his father's voice ringing inside his chest. "They'll poke at your pride. Let them. Pride without control is weakness." Inside the building, the polished marble floor caught their reflections as they passed trophy cases and oil portraits. The school was quiet, but humming. Latin mottos engraved into archways, echoes of old money everywhere. Yet for all the tradition, there was something hollow in the stares that followed them. In their first class, the teacher called roll without lifting his head. "Turner, Turner," he mumbled, already moving on. "You're not really one of us." The hardest part wasn't the jabs. It was the silence. Teachers looked through them. Other students watched but said nothing. The social order here wasn't maintained with fists. It was preserved with smirks and avoidance. It didn't take long for Grayson to raise the stakes. One afternoon, as the brothers opened their lockers, Grayson leaned in with that smirk that always said something ugly was coming. "Didn't realize they let the landscaping crew enroll this year," he said. Chase laughed. "Maybe it's a new diversity thing. Teach the help how to conjugate Latin verbs." Jordan stared into his locker, fists clenched just enough to feel it. Malik didn't move. Grayson leaned closer. "Hey, I'm just trying to help you boys fit in. You're going to need a lot more than matching shoes." Still, the twins said nothing. They picked up their textbooks and walked off. That night over dinner, their father watched them. He saw the tension in their jaws, the way they stabbed at their mashed potatoes like they were trying to avoid speaking. "You boys holding up?" Darius asked, voice even. "We're good," Malik replied too fast. "Good's a word," Darius said, "but not always the right one. You talk to me when it turns into something else." They sat for a moment in silence. Then he added, "You remember the rule? Control is power," Jordan said barely above a whisper. Darius nodded. "They'll try to chip away at your calm. Don't let them. But if they ever cross that line, and you'll know when they do, make sure when you stand right. No rage, no regrets. Just precision." The next morning, that line was waiting. The hallway smelled like disinfectant and tension. Students had gathered, murmuring, laughing, phones in hand. The twins reached their lockers and stopped. Their locker doors were covered in red spray paint. Slurs, caricatures, phrases like, "Go back where you came from," splattered across the metal. Stick figures with exaggerated features. Paper flyers pinned with tape read, "2 for 1 special, janitorial edition." The laughter rose like a wave. Someone whistled. Someone else filmed it. Grayson leaned on the wall nearby, arms crossed, grinning like a man who just pulled off a magic trick. "Morning, gentlemen," he said. "We figured the place needed some color." Chase laughed. "Red looks good on y'all." The air went still around them. The crowd waited, for tears, for anger, for anything. Malik turned to the janitor, Mr. Ellis, a gray-haired man with kind eyes, and asked, "Can we get something to clean this up?" The old man handed them paper towels without a word. As they wiped the lockers clean, the laughter faltered. Grayson's grin faded just slightly. "No more," Malik said quietly. Jordan nodded. "No more." They hadn't shouted. They hadn't swung. But a switch had flipped. The brothers had reached their limit, and beyond that line was a storm no one at Harrison West was prepared for. Because what no one saw beneath those uniforms and calm faces were two fighters trained since childhood, not to start battles, but to finish them with the kind of precision you don't teach in prep school. And something told them the finishing wasn't far off. The locker paint had dried, but the memory of it hadn't. For the rest of that week, Harrison West moved with a strange energy. Some students looked at Malik and Jordan with a mix of awe and unease, like they were waiting for an explosion that hadn't come yet. Others kept their distance, whispering behind cupped hands or ducking their eyes. Grayson Tate and his crew, however, acted like nothing had happened at all. If anything, they were emboldened, moving through the halls with that same careless swagger, as if daring someone, anyone, to challenge them. But the twins had gone quiet, not with fear, but with focus. They carried themselves like a pair of storms gathering in the distance, calm on the outside, but ready to strike when the time was right. And it didn't take long for Grayson to test the weather. On a Thursday morning, just before first period, the twins were walking across the main courtyard when they heard the familiar snap of mock laughter behind them. Grayson's voice rang out, slick and theatrical. "Hey fellas, wait up. Just wanted to make sure you knew today's special in the dining hall is collard greens and watermelon." The chuckles from Chase and Reed followed like a bad echo. Jordan froze for just a breath, his hand tightening into a fist before he loosened it with a slow exhale. Malik stepped slightly in front of him, shoulders square, voice even. "You think that's funny?" Grayson raised an eyebrow and gave a lazy shrug. "Just trying to lighten the mood. You guys always look so serious." Malik's eyes stayed on him. "Maybe we just don't laugh at things that ain't worth laughing at." Grayson smirked but didn't answer. He didn't have to. His audience had already gathered. Students lingering near benches, pretending to tie shoes or check phones, all watching. Later that day, it escalated. During gym class, the coach had assigned everyone to the indoor track for conditioning laps. The twins had just hit their fourth lap when Reed tripped into Jordan's legs, sending him to the ground hard. Before he could push himself up, Chase muttered, "Careful. Wouldn't want to hurt the star recruits." A second later, Malik was at his brother's side, helping him up silently. Coach Byron Fields glanced over from his clipboard but said nothing. No warning, no penalty, just another page turned in the book of tolerated cruelty. That night over dinner, Darius didn't have to ask. He knew his sons didn't say much, but the heaviness in their eyes was louder than any complaint. After a long pause, Malik finally spoke. "They're not stopping, Dad. Every day it gets worse, and no one does anything." Darius set down his fork and leaned back, his face unreadable. "And you?" "We've held our ground like you taught us," Malik said. But Jordan's voice was quiet but firm. "But they crossed the line days ago. We just haven't responded yet." Darius studied them both for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then you already know what needs to happen. When it's time, don't make a scene. Make a statement, one they won't forget." The next morning arrived cool and crisp. There was tension in the air, as if even the birds had chosen silence. Malik and Jordan moved through the courtyard like shadows, focused, steady, prepared. They knew the final straw was coming, and it came faster than expected. Just before lunch, they returned to their lockers and found them once again defaced. This time, it wasn't spray paint, but something worse. Polaroid photos taped across the doors, edited with racial slurs and mocking captions. One read, "Future Janitors of America." Another had their faces photoshopped onto prison mugshots. Students gathered quickly, laughing, whispering, capturing videos as if this was just another school prank. Grayson stood nearby, arms crossed, smug as ever. "We figured we'd help with your yearbook pics," he said, voice loud, taunting. Malik and Jordan looked at the photos, at the laughter, at the crowd, and then at each other. No words passed between them. None were needed. The decision was already made. As the hallway buzzed with tension and laughter, Jordan turned to face Grayson. "Take it down," he said, his voice calm but edged with steel. Grayson chuckled. "Or what?" Malik stepped beside his brother, eyes locked on Grayson. "You really want to find out?" Grayson laughed, but there was hesitation in his eyes now, the kind that shows up when someone realizes they may have gone too far. He reached out and shoved Malik's shoulder. "Why don't you two take a hint and go back to wherever it is you came from?" In one swift motion, Malik caught his wrist and twisted, not hard enough to break, but firm enough to make Grayson gasp. In the next breath, Jordan swept his leg behind Chase's and sent him sprawling across the polished floor, books and laughter falling silent. Reed lunged, but Malik sidestepped and caught him with a precise shoulder to the chest, sending him tumbling backward into a row of lockers. The hallway erupted, not in laughter, but in stunned silence. Phones were now recording, but not for amusement. This was something else. This was justice long delayed. Security was called within minutes, but by the time they arrived, Grayson was sitting on the floor, clutching his wrist, Chase groaning, and Reed blinking back disbelief. The twins stood tall, back straight, breathing steady. When questioned, Malik simply said, "We defended ourselves. Nothing more." That afternoon, they were called into the headmaster's office. Principal Everett Hayes, a gray-haired man with a Harvard ring and an uncomfortable smile, sat across from them, flanked by two assistant deans. "We're placing you both on temporary suspension while we investigate," he said, avoiding their eyes. "This is protocol." Malik asked one question. "Did you suspend them when they spray-painted our lockers?" "Silence," Jordan added. "Or when they knocked me to the floor? When they called us everything but our names?" Principal Hayes shifted uncomfortably. "That's under review." "Convenient," said Darius Turner, stepping into the room. He had arrived without fanfare, but his presence filled the space. He walked calmly to stand behind his sons, hands folded in front of him. "So, we're punishing the reaction, not the cause." Principal Hayes cleared his throat. "Mr. Turner, we're simply following school guidelines." Darius's voice was calm, slow, surgical. "And I'll be following mine, starting with filing a formal grievance, contacting the school board, and releasing footage from the hallway, which, as I understand, will match the statements of several students who are tired of being silent." The meeting ended in restrained chaos. The twins walked out, not defeated, but resolved. They hadn't lost anything. They had drawn the line. And now Harrison West would have to answer to it. That night, back at home, The Turners sat around the kitchen table in a silence that wasn't heavy, but full. Full of knowing. Full of clarity. Full of the quiet power that came from standing tall when others expected you to shrink. Malik looked at his brother. They thought we'd break. Jordan nodded. They thought wrong. Darius reached over, hand firm on their shoulders. This ain't over. But you showed them, loud and clear. Outside the house, the streetlights flickered on. A neighbor's car rolled by slowly. The night stretched ahead, quiet, calm. But inside that calm, something had changed forever. The school might have tried to humiliate them. The system might have tried to silence them. But that day, Malik and Jordan proved that some things don't bend. Some things push back. And once you've tasted the power of standing your ground, you never go back to silence again. By Monday morning, the video had spread. What started as hallway whispers turned into social media ripples, then into something no one at Harrison West Academy could ignore. Clips from the altercation, angled from student phones, circulated through Instagram and TikTok, captioned with things like, "They had it coming," and "About time someone stood up to Grayson." The footage showed it clearly. Malik and Jordan didn't start it, but they finished it, with a calm and practiced force that stunned everyone watching. They didn't shout, didn't gloat, didn't swing wildly like angry kids. They moved with precision, balance, discipline, like they were built for moments just like that. And in a way, they were. For the first time, the narrative started to shift. Students who had stayed silent began to speak. A sophomore girl named Sierra Collins wrote a post on the school's internal forum describing how she'd seen the harassment unfold for weeks. How teachers ignored the signs. How the twins had endured what no one else would have tolerated. Her post got over 200 comments, most in support. Others followed. A student from the debate team recounted how Grayson once erased Malik's name from a sign-up sheet and laughed about it in front of the whole class. Another girl from AP Bio admitted that she'd witnessed Reed shove Jordan into a locker 2 days before the fight. The dam had broken. And with every testimony, the silence that had protected the bullies started to crumble. At home, Malik and Jordan sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by statements of support and copies of the school's code of conduct that Darius had printed and highlighted in red. Their father, never one for drama, approached the situation like a military operation. He had already contacted the NAACP chapter in New Haven, filed a formal complaint with the Connecticut Department of Education, and reached out to 3 local news stations, not to embarrass the school, but to shed light on the kind of slow, quiet injustice that too many places were still allowing to grow in the dark. On Tuesday afternoon, while the twins remained on suspension, Darius received a call from the office of Dr. Lorraine Miller, chair of the school board. She requested a meeting, not over the phone, but in person. Darius agreed. He showed up that Thursday with his sons at his side, dressed not in suits, but in neat slacks and ironed button-down shirts, the same way he had dressed them since they were children. He taught them that dignity didn't need to shout. It just needed to be worn with pride. The board meeting was held in a long oak-paneled room that smelled of lemon polish and old leather. Dr. Miller sat at the head of the table, surrounded by 6 other board members. Most looked serious. A few looked uncomfortable. One older man with thinning white hair and a Yale lapel pin barely lifted his eyes. Dr. Miller opened the discussion with calm authority. "We've reviewed the footage, read the statements, and spoken with multiple students and faculty. The picture we've received is troubling, not just the incident last week, but what led up to it." She folded her hands. "We owe your sons an apology." Darius didn't blink. "Apologies are words. We're here for action." Dr. Miller nodded. "Agreed." She turned to the rest of the board. "Effective immediately, the Turner suspension is lifted and expunged from the record. Mr. Grayson Tate and his associates will face disciplinary action, including probation and community service. Furthermore, we're initiating a formal review of our internal policies regarding student conduct, teacher oversight, and reporting mechanisms. We have failed our own standards. That ends now." Darius thanked them without fanfare. The twins said little, but their silence wasn't from fear. It was from strength. They knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of a different kind of fight. When they returned to school the following week, something was different. The hallways didn't feel heavier. They felt clearer, like a fog had finally lifted. Some students smiled. Some nodded. A few still looked away, unsure how to react. But no one whispered. No one blocked their lockers. Grayson, Chase, and Reed kept their distance. Their swagger had vanished. They walked like boys who had been seen for who they really were, not leaders, not elites, but cowards hiding behind a system that no longer shielded them. But the real reckoning came on parent-teacher night. The Turners were there, walking the halls with quiet dignity. Darius spoke calmly with teachers, asked precise questions, and made it clear that his boys were not alone. Across the room, Grayson's parents arrived late, tight-lipped and red-faced. Thomas Tate barked at the assistant principal over something about how this should have been handled privately. But it was too late for privacy. Truth, once revealed, doesn't crawl back into the dark. Later that evening, outside the school gym, Thomas confronted Darius in the parking lot, his voice sharp with a bitterness that had nowhere else to go. "You think this makes you better? Think you've won something?" Darius turned slowly, his voice low and clear. "I didn't come to win. I came to protect. That's what fathers do." And with that, he walked away, his sons beside him. By the end of the semester, a new student committee had formed, Student Voices. It included representatives from every background and was tasked with giving students a place to report injustices and be heard. Jordan was elected co-chair. Malik joined the school's martial arts club as an instructor, helping train younger students in self-defense and discipline, just like his father had taught him. One afternoon in spring, as the cherry blossoms bloomed across the quad, a freshman boy approached the twins as they sat beneath a tree. He looked nervous, shifting his weight. I wanted to say thank you," he said. "I saw what happened. I didn't say anything back then. I should have. I won't stay quiet next time." Jordan smiled softly. "You don't owe us anything," Malik added, "but if you ever see someone getting pushed around, speak. That's how things change." When they walked across the stage at graduation the following year, the auditorium erupted. Darius stood in the back, his hands in his pockets, tears held tight behind proud, still eyes. Not because his sons wore medals or honors cords, though they did, but because they had walked through fire and came out with their heads high, their dignity intact. What started as a fight in a hallway became something much larger. It became a mirror held up to a school, a community, a system. It became a call to courage for those who had stayed quiet too long. And it became a memory carved deep into the heart of two young men, who learned not just how to endure, but how to rise. Because Malik and Jordan Turner weren't just boys from New Haven who earned a scholarship. They were the kind of young men who reminded the world that strength doesn't always shout, and that justice, though delayed, always comes, for those who refuse to bow. And Harrison West would never be the same again.